And I'm here to tell you that health needs to be what feels good to you.
Right.
Health needs to be aligned for your life, for your goals, and most importantly, who you uniquely are.
Welcome to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lachelle Weemy, a peak performance coach and business strategist dedicated to helping you see what's possible within you, the blind spots that are holding you back, and the solutions to ensure success and fulfillment without the hustle. I use my secret sauce of metaphysics, brain science, and scripture to work with God to manifest your ideal life and business. If you're ready to create massive forward momentum in your business and bust through the blocks that drag you down, join me on the Spiral Up journey and create the clarity, confidence, and consistency to become the CEO that lives your life by design. It's time to create the sustainable impact, income, and time freedom you desire faster. Now is the time to spiral.
Hey, friends. Welcome back to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lachelle Weemy. Today, you guys, we get a chance to hear from Erin Trier. She is a functional health coach, a mom, and somebody who's going to inspire us so much to be able to experience the best life that we can and feel the best that we can. And your story of resiliency and discernment and faith and all the things are so inspiring, Erin, that I cannot wait for people to get a chance to hear from you, get to know you better. So welcome to the show.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Dr. Lachelle. I am just excited to be here and talk more about everything health and wellness, but also how do we continue to make sure we're prioritizing ourselves in the busyness of life and work, relationships, and so much more.
Oh my God, I love that. Okay, so why don't you, in your beautiful heart, share with us how you are serving people? Like, give us a little bit of background on your business, how you show up and serve the world.
So I am a mom of four, first and foremost. And, I got into health and wellness really at the beginning of my motherhood journey. And I learned a lot about how I had to pivot from how I was taking care of myself to how I'm taking care of myself now.
Right.
It's been this huge shift for me of a lot of transitions, a lot of growing out of what didn't serve me anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of realizations around how my body and brain were evolving. And I needed to figure out an entirely new strategy. It was very eye-opening for me. And so that process in and of itself and my own personal experience really led me to wanting to learn a whole lot more about this idea of functional health, holistic health, but also what really matters for our longevity most.
Right.
I don't know about you, Lachelle, but at some point in my journey, I was very focused on one picture of wellness and thought I had to do things a very specific way in order to be quote unquote healthy.
Yeah.
And I've learned kind of the long way, kind of the hard way, that there's just this really large, robust conversation that has to happen related to holistic health.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much more than just how are we moving our body or how are we fueling our body for energy with quality nutrition, et cetera. It's really, what are we telling ourselves every day? How are we managing our workload, our stress load? Are we resting and sleeping well? Are we pouring into things where we have quality relationships around us, where we're filling ourselves with joy and happiness, where we have these different buckets that are continually being filled over and over in some capacity. And for me also is alongside spiritual wellness. I've learned really strategically how much spiritual wellness and pouring into something and being connected to something outside of myself, so much bigger than me, is also a huge part of, what I feel called to do, but also the purpose I continue to kind of step through every single day. And so it's been this ever evolving thing where, I'm very passionate about talking to women about this concept because, again, I think for so long in our lives, especially if you're potentially in a midlife season like I am now, you've seen the marketing, you've seen the messaging, you've seen the things we've all been bombarded with related to what health should be or needs to be. And I'm here to tell you that health needs to be what feels good to you. Health needs to be aligned for your life, for your goals, and most importantly, who you uniquely are.
Yes.
And that's what I want women to really embrace more than anything. So in a nutshell, that's a little bit about me.
No, I mean, and I'm really curious. I know that you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but tell us a little bit more about what made you go into this field and how did that passion get cultivated by your life experiences?
That's such a great question. Honestly, my own journey, right? So I'm a mom of four. My first kiddo I had when I was 26. My last kiddo I had when I was 37, 38-ish. And by the time I got to 38, my health really started to go backwards at an alarming rate. And I really didn't know why. I hadn't changed any major habits. I
Mhm.
hadn't drastically done anything differently with my routines.
Mhm.
From what I had always learned, I was doing what I thought I needed to do to take care of myself,
Mhm.
mind, body, spirit.
Right.
And it just didn't work anymore. Like I really got to this point where everything that I was doing was backfiring against my physiology, no matter how much I moved, how well I ate, how much I tried to rest or
Yeah.
sleep or whatever, like nothing helped me feel good. And I found myself in this really defeated and depleted place where I didn't get it. I was not equipped to understand what was actually happening with my body physiologically. And
Yeah.
that was paired with coming out of my fourth baby postpartum. It was also right before 2020, which we all know what 2020 was.
Right.
And it was like this perfect storm of a lot of different stressors in my life
Yeah.
alongside physiological change. And that was really the wake up call for me to say, there's something I'm missing here. I
Yeah.
know that this is not just, I'm so young and I'm so passionate about living
Right.
a fulfilling, energized, healthy lifestyle that I knew there was something that I was missing. And
Yeah.
so that's what led me down the road to more of this functional approach. So
Yeah.
that's where I've been focusing the past 5 to 6 years, really, with
Mhm.
getting more certifications, going back and expanding my knowledge, building out a coaching program that not only follows a very specific roadmap based on my own experience, but also based on what I've learned, actually helps you feel like you can build a solid foundation that will carry with you for the majority of your life. And that
Right.
was the disconnect I uncovered, Lachelle. I was following one size fits all
Yes.
fast track programming for a
Yes.
really long time.
Yes.
And when I hit 38 and everything changed, I finally realized, you know what? I'm not doing what my body actually needs. I
Mhm.
haven't learned my individuality, more or less,
Right.
individual health, right? I
Yeah.
didn't learn what I really needed.
Mhm.
And that's been the most transformative thing. And so that process and that journey is what has led me to where I am. And I've seen it not only transform my life, but it transforms so many other people's lives as we dive deeper into this work, because it's this whole new level of mindset, freedom, understanding, less internalizing this narrative of maybe I'm broken or maybe this is
Right.
just how it's going to be the rest of my
Right.
life.
Yes.
And instead it's like, no, that's not what it is. What
Right.
we need to do is change the strategy, change the approach, and change how we're thinking about what you need, because what you
Right.
need, what I need, what my neighbor needs, it's different for
Yeah.
all of us. And
100%.
that's really kind of what landed me to where I am.
Yeah, and I do think that it's good to acknowledge this piece before we move on to that individualization that you're talking about, because I really am excited to dive into that. But I want to just take you back to that 38-year-old self. And I want you to describe how that health picture was making her feel and how it was impacting her relationships, her life, her professional endeavors or purpose of anything. Like, give me a picture of where you were so that people can relate to that, because this is why I'm asking. I think that when it comes to our health, we may have some people still that are still stuck in, maybe I'm not even worthy enough
Yeah.
to work on myself, or I've always tried all of this and none of it has worked. And what I want to do is give this motivation of, if this is something you guys can relate to, this is how you're feeling. I want you to be able to hear Erin and see what's possible from where you are, where you started, Erin. So tell us a little bit more about what that looked like for you and how that impacted. What was the cost of feeling like this?
This is such a great reflective question.
Yeah.
When I speak about this season of my life, what I typically say is I felt like I was walking around with a weighted blanket. I
Mhm.
felt like I was literally, from the moment my feet hit the floor in the morning to every single thing in my life, making breakfast for my kids, trying to get it together for work, trying to be present in my marriage, trying to, make sure I'm connecting with friends, like all of these different buckets and hats that I
Right.
have. It felt like I literally was walking around with a weighted blanket and trying to power through. It
Mhm.
literally felt that depleting. And, I remember just being a shell of myself
Mhm.
and having these really hard moments where I would sit in different places in our home and feel like, what is going on? Where have I gone? And why am I here?
Mhm.
And it was so hard to sit with it, but I also know there was a reason I had to sit and get still and quiet enough So then I could hear and listen for what I was actually being called and led to do, which was essentially figure out what I needed as far as support, as far as delegation, as far
Yeah.
as whatever it was,
Yeah.
to help me feel like I could continue to put one foot in front of the other. And, during that time, and still to this day, obviously, this is incredibly important to me. Like, I do everything that I can to make sure that I'm feeding my body and my brain with positivity and truth that isn't just my own thoughts. Because when I get into my own thoughts, that's when I can get into these places of feeling like a shell of myself, or that I'm not enough, that I'm not worthy, whatever. And so that's been a key piece to my overall healing journey, but also my overall health, is how do I make sure that I'm surrounding myself with positivity and truth and feeding my
Yes.
brain as often as possible. And
Yes.
so in that season, that's what I really tried to do more. Was I looked to mentors that I really respected and knew that I wanted to learn from. I did a lot of therapeutic support to continue to unpack the different things that were going on with me internally. I I leaned in a lot to devotionals and getting into the word and journaling and trying to figure out what was actually going on in this season. And at the end of the day, it really was this combination of massive physiological change. But to your point, a lot of mental battles were happening inside of my identity shift of I'm now a mom of four. At the time, we were uncovering a lot of different things, specifically with one of our kiddos and a genetic disorder and a very significant health condition.
Right.
I was postpartum. It was 2020. I was physiologically changing as I got into midlife. So like I've talked about, it was this perfect storm.
Right.
And for me, it really had to become hitting that low point to get to this place of saying, okay, this isn't the way, this isn't what I deserve, but more than that, like, this isn't what my family deserves, the people I love deserve. This is not how I want to show up.
Yeah.
And so I took these small steps to slowly try to figure out, how do I get through this really hard, mentally taxing season? And, I've used a lot of different tools, but at the end of the day, it was really just this one foot in front of the other, and a lot of communication through, this is what I'm experiencing. This is how I feel. And I need help and support continuing to work through.
Well, and it sounds like, that was what I was kind of hoping that you would be able to articulate was this kind of a slow process, or was there a turning point for you?
Yeah.
And I think that what can happen with a lot of us, especially when hormones are impacting our mental health also, because there's like layers to all of this wellness, right?
Yep.
And we just have this weighted blanket, and we just keep muscling through because it's who we are as moms, it's who we are as women, it's who we are as whatever. And we succumb to this reality, like, well, this is just, I'm never going to be able to wear those jeans again, so I'm just going to just go with it. Or I've missed that time of my life, or this is just the way it's supposed to be. I'm a mom of 4 kids. Like, I'm supposed to just do this. And we put our heads down and we just get to work, and we do it and do it. And for me, when I equate your story, it was like when I decided to quit my full-time anesthesia career.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was lots of things that built up. And I always had the philosophy of, don't think about it, just do it. Don't think about it, just do it. Just keep muscling through, until one day I just realized, like, I can keep muscling through, and I do have what it takes to keep muscling through, but I cannot do this for 10 more years.
Yeah.
I cannot, this is not sustainable for me. And that was my turning point. Is that something that you kind of related to your situation as well?
100%. And I love how you kind of laid out, was it potentially this slow burn, or was it this like pivotal moment?
Right.
I feel like the reality is it was a combination of both for me.
Yeah.
When I first stepped into motherhood, my world was rocked. And I know women can relate to that. Like, everything just shifts in a massive way.
Totally.
And then once I had my second baby, it all happened again, right? Third baby again, fourth baby again. So it's like all these massive transitions.
Yes,
Right? And so when I really reflect back and think through my journey and what it actually took to get to this place of a massive revelation, more or less, it absolutely was this series of slow transitions over time, things slowly kind of chipping away as far as time, energy, and effort towards me and my needs, the more our family grew.
Yeah.
And it really just came to a head at that time period, right? So it was definitely a combination of both.
And I would really love to just kind of go back to this individualization piece that you talk about, because that's actually what I teach in business, is discerning what is the next step for me, and then taking that next step, not what everybody else is telling me to do, not allowing the gurus to be the ultimate thing, but allowing spirit inside of me to guide my next step, and then taking that next step. And if there are things that are keeping me from being obedient in that space, that's when I dive into, well, what's going on here, right? But it's really trusting that. And I think that what I see is people trying to shit on themselves, trying to put it on a one size fits all strategy, and then it doesn't work. And I see the same thing in business. This is why it's so fun to have this conversation with you, because I see this all the time where women want to be successful in business. And so they try this strategy and they try this strategy and they tack on all of this stuff, the shiny objects, and it's not designed for them. And then they don't get the results that they want. And they start to think, well, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this, or maybe this isn't my plan. And I don't know about you, girlfriend, but like fine is my least favorite 4-letter F word. And fine can relate to our profession. It can relate to our weight. It can relate to our energy level. It can relate to our relationships with our kids or our spouse. And the fine is the killer of joy, because we allow for it to just kind of sneak in underneath the surface and not allow us to actually take the next steps to discern and to figure out what that individualized plan is for you.
Yeah, 100%. You know, one of the things that I love that you said was how women, especially when we're in a working environment, particularly, we get into this headspace of grinding, powering through. I got to do this. I got to do that. So at one point or another, I'm sure all of us have experienced this idea of I have to prove myself at the table. I have to kind of continue to push forward. And here's the most transformative thing that I've learned, especially in my own journey, but also in the work I do with women, is we have to remember physiologically at the core, we are cyclical beings.
Yes.
We are not meant to be powering through at 100% energy every single day. That's just not how women are built. Now, the hard part is we have this massive disconnect between what's in the working world, what's in our society, the expectations, whatever, related to female energy, related to cyclical energy. So we have this disconnect. There's actually this fight against each other because it doesn't align. However, at the same time, the more women can start to embrace this concept of I am a cyclical being, and I know when my energy is better, and I know when I need more rest, and I know when I need to pull back a little bit more, that can be some of the most empowering work you can start to do and get aware of, because that helps you start to maximize what are you doing, but without burning yourself out, without totally counting yourself out. Because that's what happens to women over and over and over. And I see it every day in my work. I work with a lot of type A, high achieving working women. And one of the things we talk through, one of the first things we talk through is unpacking time. And understanding, you know, where is your time and energy going? We're gonna look at your schedule literally from sun up to sundown and assess what are you doing day after day, including the weekends, every week of the month, every month of the year. And then we have to assess, okay, this is not sustainable, because this is literally not only giving you zero time for anything but pouring into everybody else, but also you have no space or white space or time to actually pour into who you are, let alone tune into the energy that you actually have.
100%, right? Like I do the same thing I don't know about you, but I get a lot of resistance. Like, oh, I have to like look at everything. But I'm like, you guys, it's so insightful. But one of the things, just a very simple thing that you can do is to make a list. I actually have people draw out like a stick figure. So this is like them, right? And then I have them to draw arrows out from all the things that they're giving energy away. So it's my family, it's my job, it's my husband, it's this, it's that, right? And then have arrows pointing into the stick figure of all the ways that they are filling their energy. Now, our cell phones need to be plugged in every single day. So what makes you think, mama, that you could just go at 100 miles an hour every single day without giving yourself permission to do things for you, to plug you in? Like where do we get that identity that as moms, we're supposed to be sacrificing ourselves and our energy in order to serve everybody else?
Yeah, it's such a great point. And I love that analogy because it's so true. And I wish I knew exactly why or where it comes from. I don't actually really know. I haven't 100% connected the dots. I think it's, you know, I think our society has shifted a lot. I think expectations overall for all of us is just amplified in a lot of different ways. I think, you know, we live in a very connected world, which is a blessing and a curse, where we can't really unplug. And so it's taking this extra level of mindfulness to
Yes.
create boundaries.
Yes.
And that is very hard. And I've learned that the hard way, because there
Right.
were seasons in my motherhood journey, in my early health journey, in my early business entrepreneurship journey where
Yeah.
I wasn't as mindful about that. And I burned myself to the ground because
Right.
I just wasn't being intentional with boundaries and paying attention to my energy and checking in and saying, what do I have capacity for
Right.
today?
Right.
And letting like my 70% be
Yes.
100% when I need it to
Yes.
be. And that's
Yes.
the permission and that's the conversation we need to continue to have with women, because that's the reality of what we actually have capacity for. And
Right.
one of the
Right.
things that I like to remind women is capacity and capability are not the same thing. And for whatever
Right.
reason, we
Yes.
have attached this
Yes.
idea of, if I'm not going, then I'm not capable, right? Or if I don't have the
Yes.
capacity, then I'm not capable. And that's not the narrative that actually
Well,
serves any of us.
that it really does with you. If you really drill that down, it actually comes down to the worthiness piece. And
Yeah.
what we're doing is we're trying to allow for our performance and our service to prove to ourselves that we're worthy and whole and enough. And I oftentimes will use this analogy. I'm sure that you guys have heard this. I'm sure, Erin, you've heard it, but I can be a pitcher of water and I can pour it out. And all day I'm pouring, but really secretly, I'm doing it because I want to be loved back. I want to
Yep.
be appreciated. I want to be considered the best mom or the best wife or the best employee. And I'm constantly pouring out because I'm wanting to serve, but I'm secretly really wanting some kind of affirmation back. Right.
Yes.
And you end up finally the pitcher's empty
Yeah.
because it's hard for whatever you pour out to put anything back into the pitcher, right? But if I'm more like a vase where I'm sitting still and I'm allowing myself to be filled from the top, from source, and
Yep.
allow the overflow to be what I'm serving everybody with, I'm always connected to source. I'm always connected to God. And I'm
Yes.
allowing myself to serve at an even higher level because I never get empty. And I think that a lot of high achieving women that I work with, I'm sure you can relate to this, we're very, and I say we, because I mean, I'm right there with you guys, a very all or nothing extreme, like
Yep.
all or nothing. And so it's
Yes.
like, I either have to be the best or I don't do anything. Right.
Yes. Yes.
And so then what do? We burn ourselves out.
Yep.
And you mentioned the word boundary also. And boundary is, again, that's not the all or nothing perspective.
Right.
It's boundary is, how can this be a win-win? How can I serve you without resentment and fill myself so I can serve you even better?
Yes.
That's what a boundary is, right?
So good. So good. And something that we need to remember as women, for
Yeah.
whatever reason, I feel like this can be really challenging for us.
Yeah.
I've had many seasons where this is very challenging. I still have moments where it feels challenging, but
Mhm.
I've learned enough now that I know if I don't have some sort of mindfulness and boundary set up around certain things in order
Yes.
to set my day up for success, set
Right.
my nighttime up for success, have some buffers in my day. Like
Yes.
I literally cannot manage my
Right.
business, my
Yes.
marriage, my kids, all the things. And it's not realistic for any of us to believe that just because we can doesn't mean we should, right? We don't need to do all.
1,000%, 1,000%. You guys, oh my gosh. So, and Erin, I'm just going to share with you a little like story of me that I
Yeah.
think our audience might be able to relate to. So when I was starting my entrepreneurial journey, actually, I started with a skincare company of all things. And this was hilarious because I wasn't even washing my face. And
Love it.
so the reason that this is important is that I started I noticed something in my face one day. I was like, I looked in the mirror, I'm like, holy shit, like where did this happen? What happened here? And I finally started to give myself permission to reach out to a friend for some big girl skincare.
Yeah.
Okay. I washed my face and by all means, my goodness, it worked. Right. And I was like, holy crap. Was the skincare great? Absolutely. But what happened was that I was finally actually washing my face.
Yeah.
And I was finally proving to myself that I was worthy of taking the time and
Yeah.
spending the money on me. And so many women, especially when I think about my retreats, like they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I should take the time or the money away from my family for me to do this."
Yeah.
And I think that we have to just acknowledge this at the core, because when we get into the next part of our conversation, Erin, about how you individualize medicine, how wellness and everything for people, we have to just make sure that we're acknowledging the motivation that you are worthy enough to do this, that you're worthy enough to spend the time and money on yourself with people like Erin to help you feel better, because you deserve it, because you will be a better mom, a better wife, a better business owner, a better employee when you are feeling your best in your clothes and you are willing to be visible and you are, like I said, it sounds so simple, but I literally started washing my face and all of a sudden I started to stand up a little bit straighter.
Yeah.
I started to look people in the eye a little bit more. I took a risk and I actually started a business with this company. Like, that was totally bonkers. Nothing like anything I'd ever done before.
Yeah.
And that led me to my whole journey that I have now, all from finally giving myself permission to spend time and money on myself.
I love that you said this. I love that you said this so much because, again, it's such a huge struggle for women.
Yeah.
I see it every day. I have this conversation all the time, and there's a lot of conversation around, should I, can I, am I worthy enough? Will this actually be worth it? Can I execute? There's all of these soundtracks over and over.
Yeah.
And at the root, like you just said, it's often tied to, am I worth it? Like, am I actually worth it? And the answer is yes. And for whatever reason, there's been conditioning and narratives that all of us in one way, shape, or form have unfortunately come across in our lives that have had us question that.
Right.
And that's one of the things I'm passionate about continuing to empower women to understand is we don't question that. You are worthy innately because of how you were created and who you are. And that is really the core of what you have to remember. And the other thing that I often talk to women about is, if we ever reversed the roles on this conversation, and this was about someone else you love, a kid that needed support, your parents that needed something, or whoever it is, you would find a way to make it work because of the love and care and the worth you feel for another person. So it always has to be this reflective conversation of, how do I flip the script and make sure that I am doing that same thing for myself when I really need it, because you are worthy of that too. Absolutely.
Yes. And I think that I always want to acknowledge that we spent, a fair amount of time on this angle, because when you talk about the individuality of women's health, you don't just talk about the supplementation and the diet and the exercise plan that you individualize for them. You're bringing in the spirituality, you're bringing in the mindset, and you guys, like, you're bringing in the stress. And it's a encompass holistic approach to wellness. When we think about wealth, what is wealth? Wealth is money, but wealth is also health. Wealth is time. Wealth is love. Wealth is acceptance. Wealth is living an abundant life overall. And you have to be able to acknowledge all of those pieces that feed into your best self and how you feel and how you show up in the world and the purpose and the calling that you are able to execute.
100%. I love that so much. You're hitting the nail on the head.
I know, right? Well, I mean, we're supposed to have this conversation, right? We're totally supposed to have this conversation.
Yes.
And I kind of want to just go back to something that you said too about women who are like, is this going to be worth my time, my effort, my money? Like, what if it doesn't work for me? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm a really big supporter of the fact that we have to really own the identity that we want. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys a breakdown of what I mean. Our thoughts create our feelings create our actions create our results. And we've probably heard that a lot. And so the results are either, if they're great, then we have positive thoughts, positive feelings, more actions to reinforce that, and all is well, right?
Right.
But in reality, sometimes it's a trial and error. Sometimes it just takes your body a little bit of time, or your mind a little bit of time. And your results aren't instantaneous, like our society expects everything to be these days. And so then what happens is that our results aren't matching what we expect them to be. So then what happens? We get this negative feedback loop. Well, now all of a sudden our thoughts are, I must suck. This isn't for me. This isn't worth it. It works for everybody else, but not for me. Our thoughts create the feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, frustration. It impacts our actions, or their now lack thereof, probably. Screw it, I'm going to eat the Cheetos.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now our results are confirming that,
Yeah.
and now we've created this negative feedback loop. And I think that it's amazing for us to address every single part of that train, right? The thoughts and the feelings and the actions and the results. But before any of that stuff starts, it starts with the identity. Who do I believe that I am at my core? And am I a person who gets up when my alarm goes off?
Yep.
Am I a person who says what I'm going to do and I do it? Am I a person who enjoy working out. And it's funny because I don't.
Yeah.
Like I want it, but I
love
don't. I joke around with this all the time, but I actually ended up using a tool that I have. So I have this amazing software that I use with my clients that allows us to speak affirmations into a software that creates binaural beats so that it's a different hertz in each ear that creates a direct access to my subconscious.
It's awesome.
And I listen to it every day, right? And what I had to do was use that as an identity restructuring tool. So what I would do with my affirmations is I would be like, I love how my body looks. I love how my body feels. I love all the energy that I have. I love that I'm eating good food. I love that I'm moving my body. I love that I'm doing yoga every morning. I love that I'm getting up and with my alarm clock. I love, all the things so that I could retrain my brain. That was who I was. So then if I is just who I am, if I'm convicted in this, then the results don't define my identity. My identity is my identity.
Yeah.
And I'm less of this ping pong, and I'm able to give myself a little bit more grace and a little bit more patience and a little bit more like good self-talk. I don't know. What are your what's your perspective on any of that?
I can't get enough of that. And the thing that comes up for me,
Yeah.
Michelle, is for me, when you say, who am I? What person am I going to be? What identity am I connecting myself with? Like, am I the kind of person that gets up when my alarm goes off?
Yeah.
Or what are the habits that I want to lean into because that's the kind of person I want to be? The other side of that for me is at the same time, simultaneously starting to learn what also do you need because of who you individually are.
Yes.
We kind of talked about this. I work with women in this bio-individual capacity. So what I do is we do targeted testing. We look at very specific data for your body. What are your unique imbalances and deficiencies? How do we tailor our effort to make sure it actually fits for what your body is calling for?
Yes.
So it's not only this identity thing of who am I and what do I want to associate myself with,
yes.
but also what do I individually need? And to your point, once you start to learn that level of the data and information, it's even more this conversation of more grace, more self-compassion, more slowing down, like more alignment.
Right.
And that's at the end of the day, the ultimate goal. When you can live and function and do your day-to-day in more of an aligned place, you're not feeling like you're at this constant battle of trying to power through, push through, or like work to a degree that doesn't actually feel good to you.
Right.
So that's what comes up for me when you talk about that, because it can be this beautiful marriage of both things. And in my work, like we can look at blood work, we can look at hormones, we can look at genetics and your genetic predispositions. We can look at what your gut is doing and how that's connected to obviously your brain and how that communicates and the whole ecosystem of it all, right? The body is an ecosystem. And so everything that you are describing and speaking about absolutely affects the larger picture of health, because nothing in our body and our brain happens in isolation. There's always a connection and a cascade somehow and somewhere.
100%.
We can always learn another level.
Yeah. I mean, that's a gut brain connection. And I don't even know if I've said this on the show before, but I'm actually faculty now for a doctor of naturopathic medicine program.
Yeah, I know you told me that.
And I'm just like, I've of course like bring in my specialty that I have with my medical background and my business background, but I get to also take part in learning from my colleagues. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's so cool how everything is so connected.
Yes.
And one of the things that you mentioned are just looking at that our individualized body and how our genetics and how our hormones and all of that is playing into this. And I also loved how you integrated just the mindset work into it, that you recognize that it all works together.
Yes.
And really, guys, disease is just dis-ease. It's anything out of harmony with us feeling in ease and in balance and in neutrality. And like you were saying before, our stress, our emotions can account for, some researchers say 85%, some even say up to 100%. Our emotions being the impact of how our body is going into dis-ease. And once we can't just throw that out and pretend that it doesn't have any impact in it, because it does.
It's a huge impact. And I love that you spoke on this because it's something that we have to be mindful of. You know, a lot of the women I speak to are clients that I've worked with. And even in my own life, I've had to connect that dots because oftentimes women will come to me and say, you know, I have this physical health goal or I have this thing that I want to work towards. And most often the place we start is by actually slowing down and assessing the actual mental and emotional load you are carrying, because that affects so much more than we even realize. And when we
Yes.
start to understand that and
Yeah.
actually slow down enough to embrace it, but then also slowly change it, everything else in the entire health picture can slowly start to evolve. But it is a
Yes.
very eye-opening process for women specifically to really understand. Most often, the reason you might feel stuck or depleted or like you have no energy or like you can't move anywhere
Right.
on your health or get to your goals is because you are functioning in this total survival mode, like you said, going 100 miles an hour all the
Yeah.
time with
Yes.
all of this stress. And we haven't calibrated enough back to
Yes.
actually give you the white space you deserve. And most importantly, you need.
100%. I mean, this is the thing, you guys, like what she's describing and how I'm interpreting what you're saying is to allow for us to have some neuroregulation, some calming of our nervous system to allow for the parasympathetic to kick in. Because
Yes.
when we are in stress mode and sympathetic nervous system all the time, it impacts our cortisol level, our stress levels, the way that our body holds on to different fat cells, like everything is impacted. And I want to just bring this into to big picture. So what, again, because the people that listen to this show are people who know that there's a calling on their life. Like they
Yep.
have beautiful big visions for themselves. And I love to just get rid of any of the buts that are in the way, right?
Yep.
Like what are the I would love to do this, but.
Right.
And the reality is, guys, is that when you don't feel well, you're not going to utilize the calendar to be able to do everything that you could do with this beautiful calling. You are going to give your family your leftovers and you're going to feel unfulfilled. You may not want to get your picture taken or be live or on Zooms because you don't like the way you look or the way you feel in your clothes. Maybe you have a dream to be on stage, but there's no way. I mean, this happened to me several years ago. My body was so messed up that my back was in spasms and I had to be on a stage in California and I was afraid to be able to walk across that stage. Like you cannot live your full calling if you're running on empty and you're letting stress and dysregulation run the show. And so I just want you guys to recognize that you deserve to figure this out
Yes.
because the beautiful impact that you were meant to make in this world is relying upon you being and feeling your very best and giving yourself that permission to do what you need to do to make that happen.
Yes.
And so, Erin, can you give us just kind of walk through when somebody is interested in working with you? Give us an idea of when she comes in to see you, what is she telling you? And then walk us through kind of what you would do with her and perhaps give us a case example of like what have the results been. I want to give people this beautiful opportunity to see what you can do to help them.
So most of the women that come to me are just extremely lost. They're defeated, they're lost, they're stuck. They know their body and brain is changing. They don't really know why. They haven't been educated about it enough. They've potentially gone to other practitioners, haven't really felt heard, seen, understood, haven't really felt led down a clear path, and they don't really know where to go. And so a lot of where we start is kind of unpacking history and unpacking, you know, tell me more about where you are now, but also what led you to where you are, because we don't just land where we are.
Right.
And this is something that I like to connect the dots on for my clients, because we all have a history. We all have health stories. We all have things that we've maybe managed in our life related to trying to grow a family. We have a story of what early adulthood looked like, what our adolescence looked like. All of that matters because, again, the body's an ecosystem and everything is wildly connected. So we go deep into what is your story kind of looked like and what maybe landed you where you are now. And we try to identify, have there been any patterns? Was there a major event that happened? How long have you potentially been living in something like chronic stress? What does your day-to-day look like? What is your actual lifestyle? That is a lot of where we start, because in my program that matters. And that's how I continue to figure out, okay, what's going to serve you best as we continue to work through the idea of building this personalized and bio-individual plan. So that's where we start. And, I have this roadmap I call the Empower Method. And it is this step-by-step process where we started the evaluation phase, which is the E. And that's where we, again, go through history and everything. Then we move into the M, which is measurement. And this is where we're measuring, again, what does your time look like? What does your actual lifestyle look like? How can we continue to assess where you are truly at and how we can build a solid foundational health system that actually feels manageable for you? Because again, you are different than everyone else. The middle phase is when we start to move into more personalization, prioritizing things that actually serve you, and then optimization. So it's like we start to go after really basic foundational habits. I'm a huge believer in we've got to start with the basics. And a lot of the health conversation continues to move so far beyond the basics. There are so many amazing ways that we can dig into optimizing health and pull in tools and essentially figure out ways to live a long, happy life. But the foundations will always matter. The foundations always have to be key. And that's another thing I always remind my clients. This work foundationally of how are you moving? How are you eating? How are you managing your stress? How are you sleeping? Those will matter for forever. And if those aren't in place, it doesn't matter what kind of supplement you take, optimization tool you do, procedure you look into, it's never going to work or connect the dots for you the same way it would if your foundations are solid. And so that's what we do a lot of. And that's a lot of what I talk to my clients about, because most often there's little gaps in the foundations that I help clients identify or women identify. And then we go through what are the little small things we can do to slowly start to get this in a place where it feels more manageable and feels sustainable. And then kind of the back half of my program is continuing to educate women about what do we need to understand about the mental and emotional side of wellness? What do we need to understand about what's in our environment, from food products to personal products to chemicals in the environment? Like, how does that affect our health? Because the reality is we have to be educated about what's around us and how that also plays a larger role. And then at the end, it's really more or less just continuing to help women go through this process over and over, refining what happens and what do I do as my health evolves? Because that's really the key thing I teach above all else is you are meant to evolve. Your health is going to change. Your brain is going to change. So let's figure out a way to make sure we're equipped. So we know a little bit more about what your body needs, what you actually enjoy, how you can get into aligned energy. So then it's not like this jarring situation where when something changes again, you feel a little bit more like, okay, I can feel myself shifting. I can feel things changing. What are the foundational things I need to reassess? Am I doing enough of X, Y, Z? And what are maybe the extra tools or resources I need to evaluate? But that's kind of the journey. And, everyone is so different because everyone's in a different place. Everyone has a different kind of workload or stress load. Everyone has a different family dynamic. Everyone has a different level of what they are really looking for as far as needs and goals go. And, through the process, I know you asked about, where do my clients typically land? What are the results, right? What actually happens? My clients absolutely see physical results, weight loss, fat loss, things like that. Full transparency, that is most often a byproduct.
100%.
Often something that comes alongside the foundation. So most of my clients their energy greatly improves. They feel way more balanced, so to speak, in their schedule and in their time because we work to create white space. We work a lot on managing stress, getting into very strategic nervous system and circadian rhythm work, because that's foundational stuff that will always matter too. We work on the basics of fueling your body for energy so they feel better equipped for what do I eat? How do I eat? How do I make sure I'm stabilizing blood sugar? How do I make sure I'm maintaining my energy all day? How do I make sure I'm not getting into these places of ravenous cravings where I go overboard? Like, how do I just make all of this feel a little bit more balanced? And that's really the biggest win that I hear is I just feel more in control, if you will, more equipped for what my body needs. I have a better understanding of how I need to be mindful of the foundational components, and I'm not letting myself stay in this reactive mode. It's more this, we reprogram and say, okay, I'm learning now and I have education. So how do I continue to stay proactive and preventative with how I'm taking care of myself? Because at the end of the day, that is what matters most above all things.
100%. I mean, it's so fun, Erin, how aligned you are with my spiral up philosophy, right? It's like, we're going to continue to, as we spiral up, as we move through life, things are still going to happen.
Yep.
But when you equip yourself with the foundations, you're able to recognize it faster, shift faster, and you're able to keep moving faster
Yes.
through the journey. And I love that you equip that with people with such a beautiful holistic approach. As somebody in medicine who has experienced a shift in medicine, it's sad to see how little time people are given with practitioners.
Yeah.
And that's why I am such a huge supporter of functional medicine and naturopathy, because there is this beautiful space where people can come and truly be seen and heard and not rushed through, and be able
Yes.
to see the multifaceted parts of our wellness and to live a wealthy life. And I say that wealthy is feeling your best, to experience,
Yes.
to be able to say yes to things because you
Yep.
feel well enough to do that. And I'm just so grateful that you're here. This has been an amazing conversation. You guys make sure that you go to the show notes and check out all of Erin's stuff. And Erin, is there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap up this conversation?
I feel like I need to say you're worth it, especially in alignment with your message, Lachelle. Like, it's just, I want women to know that you're worth it. And I know that it's not always easy to get into this headspace of proactive, preventative. What are my needs? How do I pour into them? How do I find support? Because it can feel on the selfish side. It can feel overwhelming. But I feel like women need to continue to hear and have permission to understand that you deserve to pour into yourself. And it's an imperative part of business, of motherhood, of being a woman the way you are, like all of those things. You cannot be who you're meant to be without pouring into yourself. So just remember that.
I love that so much. You guys, I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. When you see this episode in our stories, comment back to us. Let us know what your favorite parts were. Let us know how this impacted you. And make sure, again, that you check out all of Erin's stuff in the show notes and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you and how you were impacted by this episode. So, all right, everybody, we'll see you next time. And Erin, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you
so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Each honest review helps me spiral up so that I can serve you even better. Whether you're feeling a lack of impact, income, or time freedom, or perhaps you're just ready for massive momentum in your business, let's chat. Apply for a breakthrough call so that you can gain clarity, identify what's holding you back, and make a plan to spiral up. Head on over to im-lifebydesign.com/breakthrough or access the link in the show notes. For immediate support, log into our community, the Better Club. We focus on inspiration, tactical guidance, and support. This is a community that wants to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business, and we're going to help you do the same. Let's spiral up, friends.